Welcome to Otto Talks Energy, Episode 6, Electricity Retailing. We've already described a little bit of the structure of the electricity industry, the four big parts. We've got generation. Generation is where electricity gets produced. It's the coal power plants, the natural gas power plants, the nuclear power plants, solar, wind. It's all of those things. Then after that, we've got transmission. Transmission is where we take that electricity, we step up the voltage, and we send it to faraway places. Then we have distribution, where we take the electricity from transmission, step down the voltage to serve more local areas. And finally, today, we have electricity retailing. Electricity retailing is how we get electricity to the lowest level of customers. Now, not everyone has electricity retailers in their service area. It's really for deregulated areas. If you live in a regulated area, and that's like the Carolinas, the Midwest, many different areas, then it's probably your investor-owned utility, which is vertically integrated, that ultimately produces the power, does the transmission, does the distribution, and delivers and bills the customers directly. So a lot of the discussions today will really be only for those that are in a deregulated service territory. So whether you're in a deregulated service territory or in a regulated one, some parts of your power bill are going to remain the same. And the first component to that bill is going to be how much electricity did you use? Normally it's measured in kilowatt hours. So a kilowatt hour, well, let's take my lamp for instance. Suppose my lamp has a 100-watt light bulb. If it runs for 10 hours, I would have used 1,000 watt hours or 1 kilowatt hour. And the price for that is typically 10 to 13 cents in the US. So to run my 100-watt light bulb for 10 hours, I'm looking at paying between 10 and 13 cents. So that's an example, but really nowadays most light bulbs don't require that much electricity. Like a lot of the higher efficiency bulbs only require 35, 60 watts, and they produce even more lumens. So that's a component to every bill. In addition to that, many bills have separate line items for transmission costs, distribution costs, for conservation costs, could be energy efficiency costs. Of course, can't forget about taxes and fees. And there can be other special items in there depending on the specific service territory. So these things are pretty common items in your electricity bill, whether you're in a regulated or deregulated environment. Let's get back to electricity retailing. Electricity retailing, again, it's the lowest level of power distribution and contact with the customers. Electricity retailers are resellers. They do not produce power. They buy power in bulk and they sell it to customers. So you may wonder, well, why would we need someone to do that? If there's already someone producing power, transmitting power, distributing power, why would we need somebody just to sell it? It seems like a waste, just a middleman. Well, the idea behind electricity retailing is that somehow this additional competition will provide for some better service, it'll force prices lower, there'll be greater innovation. And when I describe some of the examples of the services electricity retailers provide, it is pretty interesting stuff. Definitely some of the things offered by electricity retailers are not available to me as someone in a regulated environment. And let me give you some examples of some of the things that electricity retailers do to provide additional service. So one example is a electricity retailer by the name of For Change Energy, and they bill a little bit extra, and every payment that you make to this retailer, they also provide charitable contributions to the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and other charities. So by working with them, part of what you pay for electricity also goes to providing contributions to various charities. Another retailer by the name of AEP Energy services only commercial and industrial customers, so large customers, and they specialize in energy efficiency, renewables, and demand-side management. So what that means is they work with those bigger customers and they try to find places to save, reduce consumption by installing energy efficiency items. So that could be like putting more insulation in the walls. It could be using higher efficiency light bulbs and the like. They also mentioned renewables. So it may be cost effective to add a bunch of solar paneling to the top of the building if it's large enough. They also offer demand-side management. So demand-side management is allowing the retailer to have some control over their facility to reduce the amount of electricity they're using on some kind of trigger. And that trigger could be like a price on electricity. So imagine, for instance, that the price of electricity is very high because it's super hot, everyone's using their AC. So this retailer, AEP Energy, in theory, they could turn off some of the machinery or maybe the lights or maybe something that isn't absolutely needed for one of their commercial customers, and in return that customer would receive some money or a discount for the rest of their energy bill. It could also involve sending a trigger to automatically start power generation on site, for instance a diesel generator if the cost was high enough. So that's what AEP Energy does. Ambit Energy is another example. They are strictly residential and trying to minimize the cost of electricity to their customers, so they're always forecasting and trying to find the cheapest sources of electricity. Another example, CPL Retail Energy. They bundle other services that customers might need, and that's the business edge they're trying to exploit. So they offer HVAC cleaning services, home protective services like surveillance, camera installations, and price protection plans, which prevent customers from feeling a sudden increase in the cost of electricity. So these are the various things electricity retailers can do in order to provide additional value to their customers. Now let's take a step back and talk about how those electricity retailers are getting their power. Because they typically get it in one of two ways. They either have a bilateral agreement with some generation, and this could be like a long-term 2 to 5 year contract, or they could get it from the market. So if they get it from a market, they are bidding on a competitive basis for blocks of energy at certain times. And there's different kinds of markets that they could bid into, and it gets pretty complicated. And we're going to save that for the next episode, so I don't want to get too far into it. But either way, the electricity retailer has to buy the electricity, and they've got to prepare for it in real time for their customers. So they're buying it in wholesale and they're selling it to their customers, and they try to provide some kind of additional value by either price controls or, in this case, charitable contributions, additional services they can provide, and the like. So that's a little bit about electricity retailing and how it's different if you're in a regulated or deregulated environment. In the next episode, we're going to explore energy markets, and we're going to start by what energy markets look like in the regulated territory. I look forward to talking to you then. See you then.